This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein, Purim. You know, now that we're the day after.
No, we still have.
Now that we're the day after, there's important halachic shaila. You know, they say that a yid came over to Big Son. He said, you know, what bracha do you make on poison? So he said, a bracha achroina.
That's good. I like that.
Okay. Any event,
Ultimate end.
today we're going to speak about a very important Inyan. The Gemara says in Masechta Tainis on Daf Chav Tesam and Aleph, Amar Rav Yehuda Breder of Shmuel Bar Shilas Mishmei Derav Keshem Shemishanichnas Av Mematin Besimcha. Just like when the month of Av comes in, we diminish joy. Kach Mishanichnas Adar Marbin Besimcha. So too, when the month of Adar comes in, we increase our joy. Now, if I were to ask you, why do we increase our joy in the month of Adar? Everybody would say, because of course, the month of Adar contains the day of Purim. And let me not forget to welcome everyone to Kol Igor de Pirka. That's all. Anyway. So Rashi says, why Mishanichnas Adar Marbin Besimcha? Yemei Nisim Hayu Li Yisrael. These were days of miracles for Klal Yisrael. Purim or Pesach. Purim and Pesach. And the question is, Pesach, I'm going to tell you a big chiddush, is not in Adar. Yeah? Pesach is not in the month of Adar. So what in the world is Rashi talking about? Mishanichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha. Yeah, by the Sfardim also. Pesach is also not in Adar. So what does it mean? What does it mean? Yemei Nisim Hayu Li Yisrael Purim u Pesach. That these are days of miracles. Purim, Pesach is in Nisan. Rashi is trying to explain Mishanichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha. So what's Rashi bringing Pesach for? Yeah, but so says the Eliyah Rabbah. The Eliyah Rabbah, Rabbi Eliyah Shapiro, one of the Gedolei Achronim, he says like this. He quotes Rashi in Tainis Chavtes Amid Aleph, and the Gemara says Mishanichnas Adar Marim B'Simcha, and therefore if you have a court case with a guy try to slip out in the month of Av and try to schedule it for Adar, Rashi says the Nirali says the Eliyah Rabbah. The Nisan Hu Kadar. This concept, Mishanichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha, extends to the month of Nisan also. Why? Shehare Pirish Rashi. Rashi explains, Mishanichnas Adar, Yemei Nisim Hayu Li Yisrael, Purim u Pesach. Why is Rashi saying Pesach? V'zen nerali kavanas Rashi. It seems to me this is what Rashi means. The Madar Amar Mishanichnas Adar, Kavanosai Nami Anisan. You hear what's going on here? The halacha. Mishanichnas Adar Marbin B'Simcha also applies to Nisan. So you don't have to just go to, schedule the parking tickets in Adar. You also have Nisan. You have 2 months to do it. Right? The Kasha Rashi. Rashi is bothered by a Kasha. Neima Nami Nisan Mishanichnas. Why doesn't the Gemara say Mishanichnas Nisan Marbin B'Simcha? The answer is, that's what it means. It means that. Mishanichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha, Mishanichnas Nisim Marvin B'Simcha. The same way Adar are days of miracles for Klal Yisrael Purim, so too the month of Nisan are days of miracles for Klal Yisrael, and that is Pesach.
People use that expression for Nisan. They use it just for...
But it's good to know. It applies for Nisan also. It equally applies. Right? It equally applies. Okay, so what we're learning from the Eliyah Rabbah, Mishanichnas Adar, Marim B'Simcha applies equally to Nisan. So, Rabbi, so what we're learning is that there's a very important connection between the month of Adar and the month of Nisan. In other words, from Adar, you increase joy and it continues into the month of Nisan. You look in the Ramah, look at number 4, Siman Tafrei Sadik, hey? Says Ramah, Toiv Lasoik Ma'at B'Torah Koidem Sheyas Lasuda. It is good to learn a little Torah before you begin the meal. Smach Ladavar, an allusion to this is La Yehudim Haisa Oira V'Simcha V'Darshinan Oira Zu Torah. So first you have a little Torah, and then you have a little Simcha. Okay? Rabbi say, what should you learn? The Ramah doesn't say. You look in the Mechaber, in Siman Taf Chaf Tes, right? Take a look. The Ramah says you should learn before the Suda. The Mechaber says, look at number 5, Shoyalin v'Hilchos Pesach, Kaidim LePesach Shloshim Yom. Everybody knows that you start learning Hilchos Pesach when? 30 days before Pesach. Now, when is 30 days before Pesach? The Mishnah Berurah says in Hilchos Pesach, Maschilin miyoim haPurim atzmai. Machlokes haPoskim, whether it's today, Shushan Purim, or a Purim. That's why I didn't come yesterday, just think, today, everybody agrees you have to learn Hilchos Pesach. No, but the Mishnah Berurah says you start from Purim itself, and that's the halacha how the Mishnah Berurah comes out. So Rabbi said we have two halachas. Halacha number 1, learn Torah before the Suda. Halacha number 2, learn Hilchos Pesach on Purim. Says Reb Shlomo Kluger, if you have to learn Torah before the Suda, and you're supposed to learn Hilchos Pesach on Purim, so you know what you should probably learn before the Suda? Right? Putting 2 and 2 together. If you're supposed to learn before the Suda, and you're supposed to learn Hilchos Pesach on Purim, so let's put 2 and 2 together, right? You have to learn on Purim, and you have to learn Hilchos Pesach on Purim. So what should you learn before the Suda? Says Reb Shlomo Kluger, look at number 7, in Shal Sechuvas Ha'alaf L'cha Shloimei, Archaim Siman Shin Pei Daled, Hinei HaPoiskim Achroinim Kasvu, the Yesh Lasik, the Divrei Torah, Kaidem HaSuda. The Poiskim say you should learn Torah before the Suda. Ukvar Kosavnu B'makam Acher, and I already wrote elsewhere, Shahainu, Sheyesh Loi Lasik B'Hilchos Pesach. Before Sudas Purim, what's the intro to Sudas Purim? Hilchos Pesach, right? So you remember for next year. Before you start the Suda, you learn Hilchos Pesach. Why? Kivan Demaschila Miyam HaPurim Atzmai. So to me, this is a very interesting inyan. That how do you start Sudas Purim? With Hilchos Pesach. It's like, wrong Yom Tov. I would think, start a Sudas Purim with Hilchos Purim. Okay, fine, I have to learn Hilchos Pesach. So I have a whole day to learn. Sudas Purim, you're supposed to be remembering the Purim miracle. Adul Yada, you're supposed to be magnifying the nace of the rise of Mordechai, the downfall of Haman. And how do you prepare for that? By learning Hilchos Pesach? You're really not putting yourself in the accurate mood. Why learn Hilchos Pesach before the... I understand you have to learn Hilchos Pesach, but that's the way you start off the Suda? So maybe perhaps we could explain this a little bit. By the way, Reb Shlomo Kluger brings out an interesting shaila, halacha. We know if 2 people come to ask you a question. Say one guy comes today and he says, he has a shaila about Tachnon on Shushan Purim. And the other guy wants to know if you say Tachnon on Lag BaOmer. Or if you say Tachnon on a different day of the calendar. Or a guy has a random shaila, Hilchos Shmita. Right, Hilchos Shmita. He wants to know if he could buy oranges in a certain makolet in Geula. So one guy is being shail ke'inyan, one guy's asking some zach, the other guy's coming out of left field. So who do you answer first? Obviously, the guy who's asking the question, the relevant question, the pertinent issue, you always address the question at hand first. So ask Reb Shlomo Kluger, you're a Rav, and 2 people come to you on Purim. One guy has a shaila in Hilchos Purim, one guy has a shaila in Hilchos Pesach. Which one is asking more tzimzach? Which one is hitting the nail on the head? Which one is asking the relevant question? So we would say, of course, the one who's asking the shaila in Hilchos Purim, he's asking the relevant question. But says Reb Shlomo Kluger, maybe not. Because we know, Purim is only midrabanan. The halacha that you're supposed to learn Hilchos Yom Tov 30 days before, he calls it a dairaisa, because we learn it from the pasuk, Vayedaber Moshe es mayadei Hashem al bnei Yisrael. So we know what comes first, kadosh, right? Like the Gemara has a shaila, kadosh and tadir, makudosh or tadir. We know makudosh comes first. So therefore, you could make the case that the guy who's asking a shaila in Hilchos Pesach is asking a more important question than the one asking on Hilchos Purim. Or you'll say, no, the one asking on Hilchos Purim is asking what's relevant to today mamish. So this is a very interesting shaila that Rav Shlomo Kluger deals with. Look at number 7. On the 5th line, v'ka'es, and at this time, nistapakti, I am in doubt. V'shnei b'nei adam shabam lishal b'Purim. You have 2 people, they're coming to ask on Purim. Echad lishal al Hilchos Purim. One of them is asking on Hilchos Purim. V'yechad lishal al Hilchos Pesach. And one of them is asking on Hilchos Pesach, Lami niskaken tchila. To who are you obligated to answer? Im neima lahashav b'Hilchos Purim. Do we say first address the Purim Shaila? Oy lahashav b'Hilchos Pesach. Or should you first address the Pesach Shaila? Ve'ein loymar. Don't say the Purim have a chavas hayom. That Purim is the obligation of the day. V'chayva shaita kadam. And the timely obligation comes first. Zeinoi. Why? Look what he says. Kivan dehachiv lisho b'Hilchos Pesach kadam Pesach lamed yom. Since there's a chiv to learn Hilchos Pesach 30 days before Pesach. V'hayoy maschel zmanin, like we just said, when do you start learning Hilchos Pesach? On Purim.
But didn't
right?
we say that Purim is 31 days before? And that's the Rabbanan?
Okay, but the Mishnah Berurah comes out that the halacha starts on Purim itself. It's a shy look in Siman Tav Chav Ches in Sha'ar Tzion. The Mishnah Berurah comes out that it starts on Purim itself. So he says, Im kain havanami chayvas hayom. Learning Hilchos Pesach is also a chayv of the day. V'im kain yesh shloimer d'niskaken lisho b'Hilchos Pesach tchila. You can make the case that you first have to address Hilchos Pesach. Kivan dezeh havim min Torah. The obligation to learn Hilchos Pesach is a biblical obligation. K'di alfina mikra. We learn out of a pasuk. Upurim d'Rabbanan. V'doime lemadi amrinon bi'alma b'tader u'mekudosh. Just like we say, if one thing is more frequent and one thing is more holy, mekudosh kaidem kein hachanami mashahavim min haTorah mekudosh v'adif. Or do we say no? Ay Purim adif dinechshav yoiser chayvas hayom. So says Rav Shlomo Kluger, what's the halacha? Maybe neima diyachal lahashav le'ezer sheyirtzeh. You can answer whoever you want. It's at your discretion. You know, we're not legislating everything. Really? The halacha doesn't legislate everything? Yeah. If two people come to ask you a question, and one of them is in Pesach, one of them Purim, on Purim, that we leave up to your discretion. So not everything is legislated. Or, b'tzarachian. Tzarachian. Rabbi Say, very interesting, an amazing thing. The Magen Avram wants to know, the days in the month of Av, after Tisha B'Av, right? You take a look at the month of Av, after Tisha B'Av. Are those days considered days of misfortune for Klal Yisrael? The end of Av. We know, right? Mishanichnas Av mematin b'simcha. Does that apply to the whole month of Av, or only until Tisha B'Av?
Tu B'Av.
Or only until...
Tu B'Av.
Okay, Tu B'Av is... It's a nice day, Tu B'Av. But I want to know, is the whole month of Av considered a month of misfortune? Says the Magen Avram, yes.
Really?
The Magen Avram in Taf Kuf Nun Aleph. Why? Says the Magen Avram, the same way the whole month of Adar is a month of good fortune for Klal Yisrael, even after Purim, so too the month of Av is a month of misfortune for Klal Yisrael, even after Tisha B'Av. Says Chassam Sofer, one thing has nothing to do with the other. Just because Adar is a month of good fortune after Purim, it does not mean that Av is a month of misfortune after Tisha B'Av. Take a look. Chassam Sofer has beautiful words. Nichta b'tzidai. Dumya da Adar. The same way Adar is entirely good, Av is entirely bad. Says Chassam Sofer, v'li nira de'ein raya. You cannot bring a proof from Av. Dehasam hayamim shebein Purim lePesach mutalim bein beis yamim tovim. Do you know why the entire month of Adar is good? Because even the days of after Purim are sandwiched in between two yamim tovim, Purim and Pesach. Now listen to this. V'yoser nirali. It would seem to me further. Ha de Adar, that which the month of Adar, hachodesh kulei b'simcha. The whole month is a joyous time. Hu mishum diyom tesvav Adar, hu tchilas yom lamed. Because the 15th day of Adar, that's today, is the beginning of the 30 days, sheshoyalim v'darshim l'fnei Pesach. These are some of my favorite words of the Chassam Sofer. Look what he says. Nimtza. It comes out. Yemei Purim u Pesach chavukim zeh b'zeh. Purim and Pesach are hugging each other. Purim and Pesach are chavukim zeh b'zeh. They're hugging each other. Why? Because Pesach sticks out its arms. How long are the arms of Pesach? They're 30 days long. And as they stick out their arms and they hug Purim, so Purim and Pesach are embracing, And we, standing here today, we're in the embrace. We're in the hug. You feel the hug? You feel the warmth? Purim and Pesach are hugging each other. So Memela, anything in the hug, are times of good fortune. V'zeloi shayich ba'av. You have Tisha B'Av. You have nothing later on hugging Tisha B'Av. Memela, once Tisha B'Av is over, Chassam Sofer writes elsewhere, some people call it Av. Some people call it Menachem Av. Says the Chassam Sofer, everyone is wrong. They're two separate months. The first 9 days of Av are called Av. The second half of the month, the last 21 days, are called Menachem Av. The first 9 days are misfortune. The last 21 days are good fortune. They're two different months. One is Av, one is Menachem Av. Why? Because once Tisha B'Av is over, it's good fortune. But after Purim, it's still good? That's because Purim and Pesach are hugging each other. So that explains a little bit. On Purim itself, why do we start to learn Hilchos Pesach? Because we're already in the embrace, we're already in the hug, that Pesach is hugging Purim.
But Rebbe, on the Ketubah, they put Menachem Av.
What?
On the Ketubah, they put Menachem Av.
Yeah, but they don't use before Tu B'Av.
That's because you're getting married after Tisha B'Av.
So it's okay.
So it works out. Yeah? So Rabbi say we want to explain a little bit the meaning. What exactly is this hug? What is the relationship between Purim and Pesach? That Pesach comes and gives Purim a big hug. What's the explanation of that? What's the meaning of that? Rabbi, so let's talk about our good friend Haman, who Baruch Hashem, now that Purim came, his Einiklach are learning in Bnei Brak, and we say in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, when was Haman hanged or hung? Hung, right? Wrong. I'm going to teach you a law in English grammar. A gavra is hanged, a chefza is hung. You hang a person. Your laundry was hung. Okay? Now, what about the Aseres B'nai Haman? Listen carefully. The Aseres B'nai Haman were not Gavras, they were dead. So Haman was hanged, and his sons were hung. Haman was alive. So since Haman was alive, he was a Gavra. So he was a Gavra, even though this is arguing on the Art Scroll translation, but I'm telling you, it's accurate English. A person was hanged, not hung. Your laundry, a chefza, was hung. Okay, you could think about that. You'll look it up. But anyway, look at number 9. Look at number 9. In the Haggadah Shel Pesach, Rosh mi Beis Rasha. By the way, Tosfos and I think Chagiga has a cheshbon. Yasu it's gavaya chamishim. So Tosfos makes a cheshbon. If you add up all the Bnei Haman, and Haman, you only have a cheshbon of 49 amos. What happened to the 50th amma? So Tosfos says, okay, there was an empty space. Yeah? No, Zarash, she didn't make it. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, listen to this. The Aseres B'nai Haman were already killed before. So they were hung. They were a chefza. Haman was hanged alive. So he had a head. The head was the extra amma. That's what Reb Chaim Kanievsky says to answer Tosfos' question. But you got to know the English grammar to chap the significance, because the Aseres B'nai Haman were cheftzas. They were hung. Haman was a gavra. He was hanged. So his head, if you understand that, you'll understand the answer to Tosfos' kasha and Chagiga. But okay, we say in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, when was Haman hanged? Rosh mi Beis Rasha. The head of the house of the Rasha, Machatzta be'etz chamishim ba-Pesach. Haman was hanged on Pesach. Really? I thought the story was the Purim story. No. The Gezerah was issued, who knows on what day. Haman made the decree, what day of what month?
First of Nisan.
Very good, the 13th of Nisan, right? The 13th of Nisan. And they fasted for 3 days. We'll see which 3 days. And the Haggadah Shel Pesach is telling us that he was hanged, not hung, on Pesach. He was hanged on Pesach. So we see a little bit that Pesach is sharing in the miracle of the Purim story. Because the Yeshua happened on Pesach. We say in Megillah Esther, Balai lahahu nadidash nas hamelech. On that night, the sleep of the king was disturbed. Says the Targum. What night was that? Bei Belelia. On that night, isketalu kol buchrei de Mitzrayim. That all the Egyptian firstborn died. On that very night, Achashverosh couldn't sleep. As if there's some connection between the fact that this night miracles occurred to the Jewish people in the times of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and you know what other miracle happened? Achashverosh couldn't fall asleep. Interesting that the Targum draws this comparison and makes this emphasis that the night Achashverosh could not fall asleep was the night of Makas B'chayros.
Why, was he a B'chol?
Was Achashverosh a B'char? I don't know. That's a good shaila. But that's what the Targum says. By the way, does anybody know, when this Gezerah was happening, what was Esther doing? She was learning halacha. Which halachas? The Medrash says, look at number 12, Shomer mitzvah lo yeda davara, zu Esther shahoisa asuka b'mitzvahs bir chametz. While this was all going on, Esther, you know, she had the feather and the spoon. She was cleaning the house for Pesach. She was destroying her chametz. So we see there's a lot of connection between the Purim miracle and Pesach. First of all, Haman was hanged on Pesach. Achashverosh could not fall asleep on Pesach. Esther was learning Hilchos Bir Chametz. Look at number 13. Vayavar Mordechai. Right? Mordechai violated. Says Rashi. This is Rashi. I think it's the last pasuk in Parak Daled in Megillah Esther. Also Rashi in Masechta Megillah on Daf Tesvav says the same thing. Vayavar Mordechai. He violated. What did he violate? He violated halacha. What halacha did he violate? Pesach. Al das lehisanois b'yom tov rishon shel Pesach. He violated the halacha that he fasted on the first day of Pesach. Now, by the way, the Mefarshim say, why doesn't Rashi say he violated achilas matzah? Instead, what Rashi says is, he didn't eat on Yom Tov. Because you can make the case that maybe he ate a kezayis matzah, so he was yotze the achilas matzah, but he didn't eat a kabeya, so he wasn't yotze sudas yomtiv. So what he was violating was the inyan of achila b'yomtiv, but not the inyan of achilas matzah. Because the sheer achil, in other words, it could be the fast, the chlal. How they fast 3 days? Sakana. So it could be they ate a little bit. What? Either they ate at night. If I'm not mistaken, there's a Hagoyis Chasam Sofer somewhere, I don't remember right now, that maybe says they ate a little bit. So what's a little bit? I think less than a kabeya. So they were yotze achilas matzah, but they were not yotze suuda. That may explain this Rashi, but that's for a different time.
Esther asked them to fast at that time. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but they did.
Were asked to fast.
Yeah.
So your point
but listen,
is, even though they were fasting, they had that out right there.
Yeah, but they were fasting when? On Pesach.
I understand.
Right?
Yeah.
So that means they were violating the halacha. Yeah, look what he says. Shehisana, Rashi says, Yodalid b'Nisan, Tesvav b'Nisan, Tezayin b'Nisan. Why now, says Rashi, how do I know they fasted these 3 days? Shaharei b'yoim, Yud Gimel, Nichtavu hasfarim. On the 13th day, the Sfarim were written. So Rabbi, let's think about this. The Gzeira to destroy Klal Yisrael went out on what day? Yud Gimel, Nisan. They fasted 3 days. Yadalid, Tesvav, Tezayin. When did they hang Haman? Esther goes in on the 3rd day of the fast. She says, Achashverosh, come to the party tomorrow. The next day they hung Haman. So according to this cheshbon, what day was Haman hung? Thank you, he hanged. Very good. Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin. And it comes out very good. We don't say Tachnan on Yud Zayin Nisan, the day Haman was hanged. Right?
It's Cholomad anyway.
We don't say the Haman. But Yud Zayin Nisan, according to Rashi, Haman was hanged. Rabbi say, not everybody agrees with Rashi. If you look in the Rashash in Masechta Megillah, No. No. She went in on the third day of the party of the fast, and she said tomorrow. So the third day of the party, Yudalid was the first of the fast. Tezvav, Tezayin. On Tezayin, she said, "Come tomorrow with Haman," and on that day they killed Haman. So on Yud Zayin, they killed Haman. The Rashash, he wants to know, how do you fast 3 days? It's Sakanas Nefashis to fast 3 days. You can't even keep 2 days Yom Kippur, a Speik of the Yom, because of Sakana. Certainly 3 days. So he says these were not full days. Day 1, says the Rashash. This is also the opinion of the Alshich. This is also the opinion of the Manas Halevi. They fasted a little bit on Yud Gimel, Yud Dalid, Tesvav. Now, look at the Targum. The Targum says, think about it this way. Does the Targum agree with Rashi? Rashi says they fasted Yudalid, Tesvav, Tezayin. The Targum says, what day could Achashverosh not sleep? Tesvav. So that must have been, now that was the night after Esther invited him. That could only work out if they fasted Yud Gimel, Yudalid.
And the Macharat of Tetvav.
No, even Tesvav it doesn't work out.
It is a Yudbet.
That's right. So here you have, Rabbi say, 3 shitas. You have Rashi who says they fasted Yud Gimel, Yudalid. Rashi says they fasted Yudalid, Tesvav, Tezayin. The Rashash, the Alshich, the Manas Halevi says they fasted Yud Gimel, Yudalid, Tesvav. And apparently, the Targum says the third day of the fasting was the night of Makas B'chayros. So how do you reconcile all of this? So Rabbi said there's a tshuva in the Radvaz. Unbelievable. The Radvaz has a tshuva. How do you reconcile the Targum that says that the night Achashverosh couldn't sleep was the night of Makas B'chayros with the other medrash? This is, I believe, a fourth shita, that the day that Esther went into Achashverosh was the third day of Pesach. That she went into him, Yud Zayin. So you have 4 shitas. Says the Targum, you have to know that every day of the calendar has a solar date, has a lunar date. In other words, today, what's today? Today's the second day of Pesach. Actually, today's Pesach. Right? Chag Sameach. Agon Yom Tov. What do you mean today is Pesach? In the solar calendar, today is Pesach. In the lunar calendar, it's Shushan Purim. So every day has different dimensions to it. It has what day it should be based on the sun, what day it should be based on the moon. And therefore, based on this is a very, next time somebody comes late, maybe they're holding by different cheshbonos, But, by the way, you should know, just remember, by Hoshana Rabbah, if I'm not mistaken, Megala Mukos says Hoshana Rabbah is Yom Kippur. Because the lunar calendar is 11 days earlier. But in the solar calendar, Hoshana Rabbah is Yom Kippur. So you see, there is such a concept that conceptually there are different dimensions of time. But we try to live in the real world, right? But the bottom line is that there are many, many different shitas when these 3 days took place. But everybody agrees that at least one of the Tanaisim was on Pesach. But Rabbi said, look what you're seeing. Haman was hanged on Pesach. Achashverosh could not sleep on Pesach. Esther was being oisek in Biur Chametz. So we see somehow there was a connection between the Nisim of Pesach and the Yeshua of Purim. So I want to draw your attention to a question that was bothering me for a very long time. And a number of people asked this question, but we have on the sheets from the Tfer Shloimeh of Radomsk. And he wants to know, just think about what's going on over here. There's a Gezerah on Klal Yisrael that they're all going to be annihilated.
A year from now.
Right? When is it going to... It comes out on Yud Gimel Nisan, that in 11 months, right, almost a year, they're going to be destroyed. Chas v'shalom. They're doing tshuva. They're fasting. Right? Now, when a person fasts, what are they trying to do? They're trying to get on Ribbon Shalom's good side or bad side? Right? They're trying to do tshuva. So why fast on the one day a year that you're mechuyev to eat? There's one day a year that eating is more important than any other day. Pesach, matzah, marar, daled koisais, koirech, right? Suda. I don't think you have, by the way, Chassam Sofer writes, the only mitzvah sasei d'oraisa that we have today be'achila is achilas matzah. The one day a year that you could elicit rachmanos from the Rebbe Shem by eating, they fast. What's the rush? The Gzeira went out Yud Gimel. Why? Maybe just wait a few days. Maybe keep Pesach kehalacha and then fast. What's going to happen if you wait a few days? But apparently, it was important that the tainus should be dafka on Pesach. Why? What's the inyan that the tainus was dafka on Pesach? Now, 100%, I don't know exactly what the cheshbon is. I just want to point out a number of very interesting things. What avera was done, that because of this avera, we had this threat of annihilation in the times of Haman. Chazal say, look at number 17. So everybody's going to say, they're nena mehasuda, go further back. Go back even earlier. The first avera that was performed, that because of that Avera, Klal Yisrael was in danger. Look in the Bereshis Rabbah and Parsha Samach Zayin. Ze'aka, Achas, Hizik, Yaakov le'Esav. Yaakov caused Esav to scream out one time. T'chsiv, Kishmaya Esav, Estivrei Aviv. Vayizak Za'aka. Esav cried out, Yaakov, you're causing your brother Tsar? Yaakov, you're going to have to cry out. Who? Vehecha nifraloi, where were we paid back? B'shushan habira shenemar, vayizak ziakage dailaha umara. Right? So think about it. What Avera was done, that because of that we were punished in the times of Shushan? Yaakov caused Esav Tsar. He took the Bechira. Does anybody know what date of the year Yaakov stole the Bechira? What does Rashi say? Rivka says, the brachas, right? What day of the year was it? Shnei. What does Rivka say? Kach Shnei Gedoye Izim. So ask Rashi. V'chi Shnei Gedoye Izim Hay Machala Yitzchak. Yitzchak ate 2 goats. Yitzchak ate 2 goats. Ela Pesach Haya. It was Pesach. Ha'echad Hikriv LePeschai. One was the Karban Pesach. V'ha'echad Asa Matamim. And one was the Chagiga. Rabbi say, look how beautiful it comes out. The chait that was done, that because of that we were punished, was the za'aka that Yaakov caused Esav. On what day of the year? Pesach. So it comes out beautiful, the day of the tikkun, the day of the rectification, the day that Taka Mordechai was Vayizak za'aka Gedoy Lomara, it was Pesach.
So that's the tune of the Jewish people?
It was Pesach. In other words, they're being misakein boy b'yoyim. Boy b'yoyim. Rabbi Say, tell you Gavaldik Avarts from Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. You know, Esther has a problem, Achashverosh has a problem with his wife. So you have a problem with your wife, you call in the therapist, the marriage counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist. The last person you need are the Sanhedrin. And the Gemara, the Megillah says, he called those who knew the times. Says the Gemara in Megillah, the Chachamim who yodea la'aber hashanim. They called them the Chachamim who knew how to make an ibriyar. You have a problem with your wife, you can't get along with your wife, so go to one of these, conferences or seminars who you call them? Chachamim who knew how to be ma'aber the Chadashim. What do you need them for? What are they going to help you with? What are they going to help you with? So says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, Achashverosh was thinking, when am I starting the Suda? The Suda began when kings of the Umas Ha'olam begin their reign. When do the Malachim of the Umas Ha'olam begin their reign? On Tishrei. The party lasts for how many days? 180 days. Now 180 days is how many months? 6 months. But alternating months are Malei Chasar. So you're missing 3 days. 180 days gets you to Gimel Nisan. Says the Manos Halevi, Yamim Rabim. Yamim is 2 days. Rabim is another 3 days. That's another 5 days. Ches Nisan. And then he made a special party for the residents of Shushan. For how long? 7 days. That gets you to what? Tesvav Nisan. Oh, Achashverosh says it's Pesach. You know why Vashti's not coming to the party? Because she has Yartzeit. Because Belshazzar died on the first night of Pesach. If you said that, what we say at the end of the Haggadah. So Achashverosh says, who do I have to call to find out if Vashti is Chayiv Misa or not? Chachomim Yoidei Yoitim. Because if they're 2 Adars, then she has no excuse. She doesn't have Yartzeit. So he figured Vashti. What? Nachama. Vashti's father. Belshazzar. When did he die?
Jewish Vashti.
Yartzeit. Everybody keeps Yartzeit. Right? That's what he says. That's what Rabbi Glatstein says. By the Persians, especially the Persians. Yeah. So what? Avada.
What do they call it?
Askara.
Anyway, so it says Rabbi Glatstein says, you want to hear a Nachamal? Cheshbon is like this. Vashti's father passes away Tesvav Nisan. The party begins Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
It goes 180 days. 180 days takes you to Gimel Nisan. Why Gimel Nisan? 6 months. If a month is 30 days, but alternating months are 29, 30, 29, 30, 29, 30. That gives you to Gimel Nisan. Yamim Rabim. Yamim is another 2 days. Rabim is another 3 days. That takes you to Ches Nisan. Then they made a special party for the residents of Shushan for 7 days. Says Achashverosh, maybe the reason why Vashti didn't come to the party, she has Yartzeit. She has Yartzeit. So Rabbi said, but think about it. According to this Cheshbon, what day of the year did the Jews enjoy the Suda of Achashverosh? Pesach. Why are they fasting? To be masaking the fact they were nene from the Suda. Maybe they have to fast on Pesach then. You know why? They have to be masakein the ched boy b'yoyim. They were nene illicitly on Pesach. They have to be masakein by fasting on Pesach. So Rabbi said what we're learning is the chet of Vayizak Za'aka was Pesach. The chet of nene mesudasa shal sarasha was Pesach. What was Esther being oisik in? Pesach. What night can Achashverosh not sleep? Night of Pesach. So you know what it seems to me? It seems to me that Klal Yisrael are saying, Ribbanu Shalom, we need Pesach to come through for us.
What'd you say there?
We need Pesach to come through for us. In other words, here it is, it's Yud Gimel Nisan, they hear the terrible news that they're going to be eradicated. So what do? It's almost as if they implore Pesach. They say, Pesach, we need you. We need your help. We need you the same way Ribbanu Shalom performed miracles in the times of Mitzrayim. We need you to come through for us again. So the very night of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the night of Makas B'chayros, they're imploring Oisai Mida to come through for them. And this is how I understand it. The Gemara Masechta Chagiga on Daf Hey Amud Beis says that we know Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. By the way, very interesting. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya was always the one who was sent to have disputes with the Roman government. You know, the ecumenical disputes. Right? He was always debating the Chachmei, the Debei Atuna, the Chachamim of Athens, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, by the way, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, what does it say about him in Pirkei Avos? Ashrei Yoiladatai. Fortunate is the one who gave birth to him. Why? So the Mefarshim on the Mishnah say, Rabbi Shua ben Chananya was the one whose mother used to take him into the Beis Medrash from the time he was a baby, so that his ears should hear the words of Torah. So when we saw what happened to Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, we praise his mother. We say, Ashrei Yoiladatai. So I always like to think of it this way. You know, people say, we have to have debates. We have to debate other religions. We have to have interfaith. Guess who was selected, right? And just think about what kind of people go to debate? Educated people. No, I'm saying today. Educated people with degrees in all philosophy. No. You know who's the only one who could debate? Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, whose ears never heard one secular word in his life. Somebody like that, who grew up in the Beis Medrash and was never tainted by any other thoughts, he is someone who's right to have a debate. But someone who grew up understanding both sides, he is not eligible for these type of debates. Think about that. That Rabbi Shua ben Chananya was the one selected to debate the Chachmei Debei Atuna. Why? Because Ashrei Yoladatai, he only knew the truth. If you know the truth, you won't be influenced by Sheker. Someone who's already used to hearing Sheker, but in any event, there is a very important Gemara, Masech Chagiga, Daf Hamid Beis. Gemara says like this. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya met a certain Apikairos. And we mentioned this last Monday. The Apikairos mentions to Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, he goes like this. He takes his head and he pushes his head away from Rabbi Shua ben Chananya and he says, you know what you are? Amma de Mahadra Mare Ape Mine. You're a nation that their God has turned his face away from. Like it says, V'anoichi haster aser panai bayamahu. God has turned his face away from you. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya motions back. Oid yadai netuya. His hand is still outstretched. Says the Vilna Gaon. When the Gemara in Chulin asks, Esther min haTorah minayin, the Gemara is not just asking, where do the letters Aleph, Samach, Tes, Reish appear? What the Gemara is asking is, from where do we know that even at a time of Hester Panim, the Zroya Hanatuya, the outstretched arm of Yitzias Mitzrayim, is still active in the same exact way. You know where we learned that from? The Anoichi Haster Aster Panai Bayemahu, which means like this. We sometimes mistakenly think that there are two types of Hanhaga. There's Nisim Gluyim, and there's Nisim Nistarim. There are open miracles, and there are hidden miracles. No. Oid Yadai Natuya. His hand is always outstretched. The Ribbon Shalom's Zroya Natuya that he exercised in Mitzrayim is always stretched out, like Rabbi Shua ben Chananya is telling them in. His hand is always Natuya. We may not always perceive it as an open yad, but it's always there. It's always active. That's the meaning. The Gemara says, Vayet aleinu chesed l'fnei malchei paras. Vayet aleinu means that the Zroya Hanatuya was still active. So here, Klal Yisrael, they say the Rebbeinu Shalom like this. For 410 years, during Bayis Rishon, we saw the Zroya Hanatuya. We saw you in the way that we remember you from Yitzias Mitzrayim. Beautiful. So we could celebrate Pesach because we see the Yadai Hanatuya. But now we're 70 years in Bavel. You're hidden from us. We don't see miracles anymore. Ribbanu Shalaylam. If we are only Zaycha to see your Yadai Natuya at times of open miracles, then what's Pesach going to do for us now? What's Pesach going to do for us? We're going to celebrate Pesach now. Pesach in Paras has no meaning to us because we're not seeing your Yadai Hanatuya anymore. We're not recognizing your outstretched hand. We're saying, Ribbanu Shalaylam, we need Pesach to continue to stretch out its hand even for us, Behester Panim, even at a time of darkness. You know, Pesach is in the first month of the year. Pesach is in the month of Nisan. Nisan, in the beginning of the year, God is open. God is revealed. The permutation of Hashem's name for the month of Nisan is Yud Kei Vav Kei, forward. But the month of Adar is the last month of the year. Permutation for Adar is a Yud Kei Vav Kei, backwards. We don't recognize Hashem. We don't see Hashem. As the year goes on and on further, from the month of Nisan to the month of Adar, God is hidden. He becomes more and more unperceptible. We don't recognize Him as much.
Imperceptible.
So therefore, in the times of Purim, at the time when we're at the end of the year and we don't recognize the Yad Hashem, and Hashem is Behester Panim, we say, Ribbanu Shalaylam, if in the darkness of the Galus we're not able to see the Yadai Hanatuya, then what's Pesach? Pesach is very nice when the Beis HaMikdash stood and we see your open miracles. But what's Pesach now going to do for us? How's Pesach going to help us if your hand is completely invisible to us? So Klal Yisrael, they fasted on Pesach. They implored Pesach. Chazal even say the logic they used was Mutav sheyichalo Pesach achas kedei sheyishmeru Pesachos harbe. But the message they were trying to say is, Ribono Shel Olam, Chas v'Shalom, are you telling us what that min said? Amo de mahadra amore apimine, are you hiding your face from us? That's what they were doing by fasting on Pesach. They were saying, Ribono Shel Olam, we want to see this Roya Hanatuya. So says the Ramban, we all know the famous words of the Ramban, that the purpose of open miracles is that through open miracles, a person is makir, that all the hidden miracles of this world are also nisim. The Ramban says at the end of Parshas Boy, "Umin hanisim hagedolim hamaforsamim." From the open, widespread, obvious miracles, adam moide benisim hanastarim. Through them, when a person sees Kriyas Yamsuf, when a person sees Dam, Tzefardea, what's the point? The point is to recognize that heartbeat is also a miracle. That's the point. What's the point of Pesach? The point of Pesach is to recognize Purim. The point of open miracle is to recognize respiration. When you see Dam, Tzfardei, Akinim, then you recognize that when your eyes work, that's also a Nes Nigla. Shehem Yisaid HaTorah Kula. That is the foundation of the Torah. She'in la'adam chelek b'Torahs Moshe Rabbeinu. If you want to consider yourself a believing Jew, you are not allowed to Hadshenamin until you believe b'chol dvareinu u'mikreinu, that whatever happens to us, shekulam nisim, everything. You move your fingers, your ears are working, you could chew food. Ein bohem teva u'minhago shel olam. There is no such thing as nature. Bein berabim, bein beyachid. In other words, the purpose of Pesach is to be makir Purim. So we say, Ribono Shel Olam, you made a Pesach for us. Whippy-doo, as they say. What's Pesach going to do for us now? If we're in Golos and we cannot see Yadai Hanatuya, then Chas v'Shalom, this is exactly what the Goyen is saying. This is what the Vilna Goyen is saying. This is the conversation between the Apikairos and Rabbi Shua ben Chananya. The Apikairos says, You're Amo de Mahadra Ape Minei. He says, of course, the Min says to Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, of course Hashem performed all the miracles in Mitzrayim. Yeah, I agree. The Min says, Hashem split the Yamsuf, Hashem made Dam, Sfardei, Akinim, Arag. But you know what Hashem is doing now? He's hiding his face from you. He's not interested in you anymore. And what's Rabbi Shua ben Chananya saying? No. The exact same Yadai Natuya that we saw in Mitzrayim, we still see today. We still see it today? We don't see it today. It's hidden. No. We perceive through the open miracle that it's Oid Yadai Natuya. That's the inyan, that's the connection between Pesach and Purim. In order for Klal Yisrael to have the Yeshua of Purim, it had to happen through Pesach. They fasted on Pesach. Achashverosh couldn't sleep on Pesach. Esther was oisik in halachas of Bir Chametz. Before Sudas Purim, what do you learn? Hilchos Pesach. That's the introduction to Sudas Purim. The introduction to Sudas Purim is Hilchos Pesach? Yes. Because by thinking about the open miracles, that helps us understand that even the hidden, even the dark times of Galus, that's also God's manipulations. And that is why Rabbi say, in an Ibriya, like we have this year, when do we celebrate Purim? In Adar Beis. Why? What about Ein Mavirin Ala Mitzvahs? No. Mismach Gula Legeula Adif. You want to juxtapose Purim and Pesach. Look in Megillah of Vav Beis number 24. Amar of Tavi, time of the Reb Shimon Gamliel. Mismach Gula Legeula Adif. You want to juxtapose the two redemptions. Why? Why do you want to juxtapose Purim and Pesach? Like this. Going forward, it seems like Pesach's in the beginning of the year. That's open miracle. 11 months later, 12 months later is Purim. That's secret miracle. They have nothing to do with each other. No. You're looking at it wrong. You're looking Pesach in the beginning of the year, Adar at the end of the year. No, you have to look at the other way. It's Adar and then Pesach. They're right next to each other. They're back to back. Why? Because al yedei the miracles of Pesach, that's how we appreciate the Va'anochi Hasar Aser Panai B'Yom Hahu, that everything that happens in our life are Nisim, Mefarsamim, Nisim Gluyim, Rabbi Sai Freilchen Shushan Purim.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.